Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. Thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Thank you very much for having me again.
For those of you who didn't catch our first podcast, this is the Thinking Out Cloud podcast, where every so often we will have a special guest.
Episode 2.
Episode 2, we are, yes. And in our first one, if you didn't catch it, we were talking about Microsoft 365 Copilot. We were talking about the changes to CSP, licensing for education charity customers. And we're back again to talk about more Copilot because, ding, 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 Microsoft has announced more great stuff happening in the Copilot space. Should we dive in?
Yeah, absolutely.
So actually, well, apologies. I've not introduced ourselves.
You haven't? No.
I'm just getting straight into it. So, Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Graham. I'm a Partner Development Manager at Ingram Microcloud, and I'm joined today by
Chris Williams, Channel Sales Manager for Modern Work and Security. I work very closely with Ingram.
Yes, you do. And so Microsoft 365 Copilot has been the talk of the IT world all this year, pretty much, since its announcement. It's quite exciting. So in September there, Microsoft announced the general availability of Copilot for enterprise customers, which I think is quite exciting. And obviously they talked about the price announcement of $30 per seat for the users, for anyone who's on Business Standard, Business Premium, Microsoft 365 E3 and Microsoft 365 E5. But for those customers who are not on enterprise agreements, most of our customers that we speak to on a regular basis are on the CSP program. What would you say, Chris, to those customers who are like, oh, I'm on CSP, I really want to get my hands on Copilot? What would you say to them, still wanting to get their hands on it? How can they experience Copilot and get prepared and get ready?
Yeah, it's a good question. Let's unwrap that. It was the announcement in New York where everybody's understood that has been looking at Microsoft 365 Copilot that it's in private preview. And the announce was that, yes, like you say, general availability 1st of November for enterprise customers on Microsoft 365 E3 or E5.
Yeah.
But there was kind of some clarity that kind of followed through that. So it is enterprise agreement customers on Microsoft 365 E3 or E5. And more information will come when we think about CSP. The vast majority, like 99.9% of customers on CSP. More information will come in the coming months on that. But in terms of the what to think about next, there were loads of other great things that came out from that event, and also actually came out previously. So the guidance here for partners and customers is probably no different. It's getting ready for AI. So that's around ensuring that there's good structure around the data in the organization to make sure that Copilot can index the information, but also only the right people have access to the right information, which I think we covered a little bit on the last podcast. But the other thing as well is you mentioned the price, but the price was actually communicated back in July, the $30 per user per month. But we also at the same time announced Bing Chat Enterprise. So that's one of the things also that customers and partners can think about, because to kind of digress ever so slightly, we commissioned a report around about May earlier this year. We do something every year called the Work Trend Index. And the most recent one back in May was called Will AI Fix Work? And there was a really interesting statistic in there. It highlighted that it took mobile phones 16 years to get to 100 million users. It took Facebook 7 years to get to the internet 7 years to get to 100 million users, and Facebook 4.5 years. ChatGPT got there in 3 months. So the appetite for generative AI is here. Organizations, employees, individuals want to understand as to how it can empower them. But Bing Chat Enterprise, Microsoft 365 Copilot for a lot of customers is just a little bit further down the line, but Bing Chat Enterprise is here now. So switching that capability on so that individuals can use generative AI connected to the internet, but importantly, protected data. So the commercial data, sensitive data that might be plugged into it, we don't have eyes on it. We're not remembering that prompt. We're not remembering the data. As soon as you come out of the browser, if you went back into Bing Chat Enterprise to ask it, you might have told it you made £10 million last week. You go back in and ask how much money did I make last week, it doesn't remember that. It doesn't know that unless it's publicly available. So that gives organizations the confidence to go and utilize it. So Bing Chat Enterprise is the next piece. And one of the other announcements that came out was Windows Copilot. The democratization of generative AI capabilities within the device. So there again, that was announced that as of September the 26th, customers would be able to look at upgrading to the latest version of Windows 11, which would also include Windows Copilot, giving the ability to engage with that generative AI engine, the Copilot engine, and start to get some of those outputs that people are looking to get. So I think those are some of the things that could be thought about as, yes, the vast majority of customers are still on that journey of getting towards Microsoft 365.
Yeah, but you can still
Copilot.
experience elements of Copilot
absolutely.
at the moment. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been using Bing Chat Enterprise already, and for those of you who are thinking, "Oh, I've not heard of this," or "How do I get my hands on it?" You effectively go into your Bing browser, Bing search engine, go in the Edge browser, and log in with your Enter ID, as it's now called, and it should pop up when you hit the chat icon, and it'll say Bing Chat Enterprise or something.
Yeah. So from an admin perspective, whether it's the customer or whether it's the partner, it's actually really straightforward. I did it in my demo turn; it didn't take me very long. We've now also added the capability to select individual users or groups
that have access to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So rather than rolling out org-wide, you can say, actually, I want to, as a proof of concept pilot, I want to put it into my HR team, my finance team, or various different teams in the organization. But yeah, it's really, really simple to set it up. And then when you land on it, it's emblazoned. As you look at that screen in the left-hand side, it says Bing Chat Enterprise in big bold letters. In the top right-hand corner, it's got your Enter ID that you talk to, and there's a green symbol that says protected.
Yeah.
And in every single prompt it returns, it reminds you that your data is protected.
Secure, yeah.
Exactly. So it is very easy to distinguish that you're in Bing Chat Enterprise, but it's easy to get switched on and get started with.
And with Windows Copilot as well, obviously that's been rolled out generally across everyone in the UK here, and it kind of going back to a few months ago where it was announced the retirement of Cortana, we can understand why these types of things are in motion and where they're playing. So for any of you who are missing Cortana, don't worry, it is being replaced by Windows Copilot, which I'm sure is a much more integral service to their experience on Windows.
Yeah, I mean the same with Bing Chat Enterprise and with Windows Copilot. You've got the ability to be able to engage through natural language, typing into your keyboard, or alternatively talking to it so that you can instruct it through voice.
Yeah.
But yes, that is for customers in the UK. Upgrading into Windows 11, the latest version of Windows 11, even for customers that are there now, that will be a feature that will be added.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And some of the other great announcements that we caught was Microsoft 365 Chat and Microsoft Copilot Labs, which I'm really excited about the labs, but we'll touch on that in a second. But Microsoft 365 Chat, which is, I think, inbuilt into Teams, where you can ask it questions and things like that. But the labs thing, oh wow! Like I was sitting there really close to my screen watching it and thinking, this is fantastic. So effectively, it's your kind of manual to Copilot or a manual to AI, where you can view.
Are you saying your Copilot to Copilot?
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, your Copilot to Copilot. It gives you all the different types of prompts and how you should interact with AI. Obviously, when you're talking to AI and you're using your voice assistants at home today, you have to be very specific about what you ask it. Like whenever I ask my voice assistant, what's the weather like in Bangor, where I'm from in Northern Ireland, it will tell me the weather in Wales because I have to be very specific about where I'm asking it. And Microsoft 365 Copilot Labs gives you all the different types of things that you could be asking AI and the different prompts and stuff, and you can share that with people and you can experience it and get better at it. What's your kind of interest on that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I love the look of Labs, but I think I'm probably going to talk about Microsoft 365 Chat just for a second. First off, because originally, I think we mentioned on the last one, naming convention changed for something. We don't change the names very often, but it was originally called Business Chat.
Yes.
And it's now Microsoft 365 Chat. And there's an iteration there. There's a growth from what we saw previously with Business Chat. You had the ability to be able to engage through natural language, ask it questions. It would connect across the multiverse of data that you have. It does the same things now, but as you engage with Microsoft 365 Chat, it can help you to prioritize. You can start in Microsoft 365 Chat and then break out. So maybe you're getting it to draft your response, but you need it to then open it up in Outlook. You can literally do that from that one screen. Rather than needing to start in the specific workspaces you're intending, you could start in Microsoft 365 chat, or maybe then you need to move into another space.
Yeah.
I mean, I had an instance. I was out with a partner, an end customer event. We had 80 customers there. It was a great event. Lots of great conversation with customers. A lot of, around Microsoft 365 Copilot. But I triaged my inbox and my emails on the way back. Got it into a relatively good place. 9:00 Monday morning. End up in front. There's a couple of things I need to respond to. Get that all sorted. Jump on my first call. My first call was about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes, and I had about a 10-minute break. Jump off that call. I've got, I think it was 13 Teams messages from 13 separate people, and I've got about 10 emails. I've got about 10 minutes. So Microsoft 365 chat helping me understand as to which are the ones that need to be prioritized, and then quickly being able to draft up response. Not only that, if I need to then prioritize later on in the day, something else that came out of the event was follow a meeting in Outlook. The ability to determine, actually, later on today, I've got a meeting, but I'm not the host. There is no necessary expectation of me to deliver, but there are maybe some important points I need to capture. Following the meeting will allow me to get a summary from that meeting, because it will prompt the individual that is on the call that 2 people are following, 3 people are following, 1 person is following. We need to record this meeting so that other people can catch up on the meeting. So I found myself linking back to that work trend index with something that we referred to in that work trend index as digital debt. That influx of Teams messages, emails, meetings, and needing to prioritize. Copilot helping to alleviate some of that. So the Microsoft 365 chat piece is super interesting to me. But I agree with you on the labs, because this is new technology, new capability for everybody that engages with it. Yes, people have been engaging with ChatGPT, but what Microsoft 365 is capable in those applications that everybody is using, it's immense. But then learning what those good prompts look like and experimenting in that space. But to your point, helping other people as well, sharing the prompts with your colleagues that are working really well for you, or learning from what other people are doing. That's a great mechanism for customers to be able to use.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. Yeah, and in that kind of announcement as well, obviously, partners have been talking to me about the opportunity that there is that surrounds Copilot, and in 2024, obviously, they're imagining, that it will be immensely popular when it eventually launches for CSP customers. And when it comes down to the opportunity for a partner, obviously, here at Ingram Micro, we've been brainstorming all the different applications that partners can use it for. Our CommsCare Ingram Microservices team as well has been working on different solutions and services and tools to support partners and their end customers adopting. What does the roadmap look like in terms of what is your first journey when adopting Copilot, and what is the last thing you do in terms of go to market? One of the things that we were talking about as a team recently was how we do everything from a compliance standpoint to make sure we cleanse the data. When it comes to machine learning, we cleanse the data and we make sure that the right data is in there. Anything that's over 4 or 5 years old, we don't want Copilot to reference that, because it would skew the results when it comes back. Obviously, if something's changed, and when it comes down to we've finished cleansing the data, and everyone starts adopting Copilot. All the documents are manually tagged with their sensitivity labels so that only certain people can have access to them. But we're all human. We'll manually tag the documents moving forward in that environment, but we can't always expect that they will be the right compliance or sensitivity labels in that environment. And one of the things that you can do is you can add the E5 compliance SKU, which is information and governance protection, which allows for 2 things: automatic classification and machine learning classification, which I think will be very popular, because no customer wants to have to do a compliance review every month or every 6 months to look back and go, "Oh, Copilot's been referencing things it hasn't because someone has made a mistake and tagged something in an incorrect fashion." And what would you say to partners, Chris, in regards to how is Microsoft supporting their knowledge and preparation for their end customers?
Yeah. So In terms of it's an important point that you make in terms of the classification of documents. I mean, it's really down to the end customer's needs, right?
Yeah.
They've got the ability to go forward with that manual classification, but they've also got the ability to explore whether actually automatic classification is the right thing for them, to ensure that the documents are protected in the right way. But there are options there ultimately. I think if we think about what's available for partners to go and kind of like pull on and support in those conversations or preparation for conversations, I think we mentioned on the last one boot camps. So
yes,
we've held a series of boot camps, and there'll be more to come. And those boot camps weren't specifically just around Microsoft 365 Copilot. They were covering Dynamics Copilot, GitHub, Azure AI, Azure OpenAI service. There were various different things covered in them, just helping really ground the capability of the solution within partners. CSP Masters, I think, again, we talked about before. That doesn't necessarily at the moment go into the deep dive technical side of Copilot, but it does cover information protection, and the security and management elements available within our SMB suites like Business Premium. So that actually, if these kind of things are maybe new to some of the specialists within the partner, they've got the ability to go and make sure that, like I said before, I think we've solved this stuff. How do we switch it on?
Yeah.
But again, don't think we talked about this before, but Fast Track, and that's available through Ingram, through CommsCare. So for customers over 150 users, for no charge, you can gain access to a specialist to help you understand and guide through the implementation of various different things available within that Business Premium suite or Microsoft 365 E3 or E5.
Yeah.
Again, we've sold this stuff. How do we switch it on? But more as a tailored one-to-one approach based on that customer. And for the customers below the 150 users, the guidance is still there and available on demand. And again, we didn't really elaborate on it too much, but I think we probably will this time round. But again, assessments.
Yes,
assessments. That's kind of, we've talked about there. How do you go and switch some of this on, learn a little bit more broadly, and then a little bit in one-to-one scenario. But the assessment is we want to go and establish what the landscape looks like so that we can address it in the right way. And that's, as I say, that's the solution assessment program.
Yeah, well, I a couple of months ago, I joined a partner with a solutions assessment review, and it was interviewed with the team, and they went and did the report, and we got a copy of the report afterwards and shared it with the customer, and wow, it was an 80-page document, and it highlighted some, scary things, which the customer was, completely unaware of, and I think it's fantastic because this customer had over 80,000 documents with personal identifiable information on it. And some of these were on personal devices. And, the customer wouldn't have known that if they hadn't had this assessment. Yes, they may have, had an idea through the compliance center that there was information that should have been protected in document level security. But it was able to give you a number. It was able to tell you the email addresses associated to the individuals who may have logged into company-oriented material with their personal phone, and it was linked on that. And I think that was fantastic, and that's a really great step in terms of someone's journey to having a very fine compliance audit, almost, in terms of what are the gaps in their technology, what are the things and considerations they should be thinking about before their journey to Copilot, because you don't want Copilot referencing them to anybody in the organization.
No, yeah, of course, and I've seen the output of many assessments, and when you say 80-page document, I've seen the documents. They're big documents. They do disseminate very clearly what are the priorities. Yes. There is kind of like a structure to the document that talks high level. Then there's detail. There's CIS scoring, and they highlight what are the highest areas of risk. So there's like a table that it shows you to help you understand, right, from what we found, really where do we think you should be prioritizing, but not ignoring all of this other stuff. Here's the order of priority we see elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it, it'll look like what you talked about. It'll look at, what have we found with regards to document protection, endpoint protection, version of operating system, MFA switched on in the wider user base or global admins.
Locations where people have logged into as well.
There's loads of information that comes from this, but it helps to determine, right, what are the areas that we need to prioritize on. And the thing I think about with this as well, it's one of our most used programs, but there are so many partners that I'll jump into a conversation with and they just don't know about it. They don't know it exists, and customers the same. So although it's heavily utilized, it's almost a little bit unknown in a lot of circumstances. But for customers and partners, this is a no-cost service.
Yeah.
There is eligibility criteria for the different assessments that's there. But if we look at the security one as an example, providing the customer is a minimum of 50 users is the current set criteria, then we can nominate them for an assessment. The output is given. And if the customer's got a need, maybe they've recently had a security breach, they're redetermining their security strategy, they've got multiple vendors protecting them, and they're thinking about consolidating into Microsoft 365. They have a need. The assessment team will engage, understand, and then look to move forward and support with the assessment, guiding through deployment, capture the information, and then deliver the output so that the customer is clear. But it's not only security.
Yeah.
They will also assess around, not my wheelhouse, but they will assess around things like moving from on-premise to the cloud.
Yeah. Well, it advise you, this is the total cost of ownership, that you're probably on now with your on-premise servers.
Yep.
If you were to move it into Azure, it could cost this amount per month for these services and solutions. And I think that's also fantastic, especially because there's a lot of businesses focusing on their carbon emissions output and things like that. And this can go a long way in terms of supporting them. And it will even tell you, in terms of one of the things I find is that, yes, you can go into the 365 admin centers, the wealth of admin centers that Microsoft offers, but that takes a lot of time. These solutions assessments can be done within almost 30 days or less. And, having Microsoft do the audit, it adds a lot of weight to the conversation you're having with the customer. We've all got customers that, they'll take their feedback on and they'll be like, yeah, we'll do something with that eventually, sort of thing. But this is, when you introduce Microsoft into the conversation, they really take it seriously, I find, and they start adopting the changes that are recommended in this, which I think is fantastic support for a partner.
Let's say it's giving that guidance as to, based on what we've found, what does your either roadmap to the cloud or roadmap to a more secure environment from a Microsoft standpoint look like, so that they kind of have that really clear understanding. And on the Azure point that you mentioned, they can also help you understand the sustainability impact on your business.
Yeah.
And you talked about total cost of ownership, but what does right sizing look like? Because it's not just a case of taking the specification that you've got on-prem and, quoting it based in Azure. It's what does that customer need? What does right sizing look like? The assessments help with all of that.
Yeah.
So I think really there for partners, if they've got customers where they're having those types of conversations, engage with the Ingram team, your account manager or CSM within Ingram, to explore as to getting a nomination in.
Absolutely.
To see whether that's possible to help support the customer's transformation journey, whether it's to the cloud or optimizing what they've got there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one last thing before we finish is I want to go back to this Microsoft 365 Copilot boot camps, because I attended my first one just last week, and I find it incredibly informative, especially for those who are wanting to, maybe you're searching the internet and you're trying to find out information about Copilot. And these boot camps, Microsoft is on these boot camps. They're live, chatting, interacting with partners, going through, the latest stuff that you need to know about it. And I learned something quite interesting that we talked about in the last one, which is there's a lot of documents we have in our environment, and, going through and manually tagging these and going through that journey can be, quite a daunting task to look at. But one of the things that Microsoft confirmed on this bootcamp was indexing, and how if you've got a SharePoint site that it's a dedicated SharePoint site just for sensitive information, maybe it's for HR or it's got the personal identifiable information in it, you can turn off indexing on specific SharePoint sites, so that it's kind of like your invisibility cloak that goes over a SharePoint site to say, no, Copilot doesn't know that exists. So that, not to say that people will just rush to go and do that for all their SharePoint sites, but it's a really great tool that allows you to say, right, I know that all this information doesn't need to be manually tagged immediately. Let's go and remove indexing from this SharePoint site. And I think that's fantastic, especially the fact that you can use these bootcamps to interact with Microsoft and ask those those questions that you might not know the answer to, or might not find the answer to. And I encourage you to sign up for these boot camps. If you go into Cloud Partners, I believe, Chris,
Yep.
and search for Copilot, you can register in there for Microsoft events, and they'll be holding these regularly, and you can ask questions and get copies of the information that they share.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. The boot camps have been great, and there have been various different events around Copilot. I remember I was watching one of the sessions back, and it was kind of giving guidance about, think about user types within the customer. So we've all seen the various different videos, or most of us have seen the various different videos with regards to what the capabilities look like in Outlook, in PowerPoint, in Excel. But think about the use cases for individuals that work in finance, HR, sales, marketing, the various different departments in an organization, and then maybe start to humanize as you're engaging with customers. What does that actually look like? So if you're wanting to transfer from Word to PowerPoint, somebody in HR, what would that look like?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, example being, might have been about 4 or 5 months ago. My darling wife works as a HR and employee relations manager, and she was working from home. And I caught that she was in a Word document, and what she was doing was she was transferring what was in the Word document, policy information, et cetera, and she was transferring it into a PowerPoint because the intention was she needed to create that to deliver training, so that then the managers could deliver training to the employees, like train the trainer, train onto the end employees. That took hours, but that won't be just her HR team. That won't just be the HR team for the company she works for. There will be people in organizations all around the country that are doing similar activities. So really getting under the skin of what are the people in finance doing, so that you can help really articulate how Excel specifically for finance, or Word, PowerPoint specifically for HR, will help interviewing, building job descriptions, personalizing it based on a user profile was one of the things that I learned in one of the boot camps, which was, I think, quite powerful for partners to think about as they help customers understand the potential. Because what we really want is as customers, when this is available for customers to deploy, is they get absolutely the most out of it, so that it starts driving that time saving, so they can reinvest in other areas, engage with more customers, have more purposeful internal conversations, development, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
It drives that return on investment that we expect it to.
Yeah, you've just reminded me of one last thing that was confirmed in the bootcamp, actually. Copilot workshops was announced, and they've provided the material now. So if you've got customers that are wanting a bit of a workshop on, what is Copilot going to do for my business? Ingram now has the access to the collateral, courtesy of Microsoft, to go and deliver a personalized workshop to your customers on, here's what Copilot can do for your business. Here's an example or a demo of this is what Word can do. This is what Excel can do. This is what Outlook can do. And what they need to understand. Rather than you having to deliver this wealth of information to the customer, you can now host your own webinar delivered by yourselves in Ingram Micro to your end customers around getting ready for Copilot. And I think that's fantastic as well. So
that was a plug there, wasn't it? That was
absolutely.
That was a plug. And
absolutely.
if the partners that are watching this want somebody from Ingram to help them with that, how do they make that happen?
Just get in contact with us. Absolutely. I've already got a couple booked already off the back of the announcement. So
cool.
Yes, just get in touch with your Ingram Micro Account Manager PDM, and we'll book, start booking in dates for November, December, or even next week if you want.
Availability dependent for
yes,
Pete.
exactly, absolutely, yes. But yeah, no, that's been very useful. Thank you very much, Chris. Lots to talk about today. So, but yeah, if you've enjoyed this podcast today, please let us know in the comments any kind of material that you find really useful, anything you want to find out further, and we'll join you on the next one.
Cool. Thank you very much, Pete, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.